Hi there. Welcome to this week's episode of the podcast with me, Russell Davis. This episode comes out at the very end of the year, the 30th of December. The new year is soon upon us. You may be starting to think about the year coming ahead. Perhaps you're thinking about what you want to achieve over that year. I want to share an episode from last year when we unpacked goals. I think goals can be really helpful, but they can be a double-edged sword. If not thought about in the right way, goals can very quickly and easily become very toxic and unhelpful. So let's look at goals and how you can create some goals that will serve you to create more of what you want in your life and avoid them becoming toxic and unhelpful. Let's see how we can help you create 2026 to be an amazing year for you. I want to unpack the subject of goals. Goals is a very common subject, obviously, when it comes to personal development, and most coaches and self-development books or self-help books will talk about goals and recommend goals. In business, obviously, goals are very important. But I don't think it's a simple subject. When I did a little made some notes on a mind map of this subject in preparation for this, and it's like a spider's web. It's a bit of a mess. So bear with me as we walk through this subject, because we may jump around a little bit because it's very nuanced. I don't think it's as obvious and clear-cut as we first think. So let me first start with SMART goals. SMART goals is obviously a very common form of goal setting. Very early in my career, I was taught about SMART goals. Measurable, realistic, timely, achievable. And I think one of the things I've learned about goals is actually sometimes having unrealistic goals can be more beneficial. Because when you have unrealistic goals, you have to think differently. You have to think out the box. When you have realistic goals, you continue your current way of thinking. It don't actually help you to really have a dramatic shift in your performance. You may not achieve your unrealistic goals, but I think if you have an unrealistic goal, you'll achieve more than a realistic goal. And this points towards something I'll unpack a little bit more about having unrealistic goals. I think what's more important than goals can be our state of being, what it evokes with us, our state of being, which I'll come back to in a minute. Another thing about goals is me to be aware of is sometimes they can actually be toxic. We think goals are useful, but actually they can be toxic. Because unconsciously what we're saying is, I'm okay if I reach this goal. I'm okay when I reach this goal. Because if we think our psychological well-being in any way, our worthiness, our lovability, is linked to the outcome of that goal, then it becomes a toxic goal. We think our okayness is dependent on it. And we're not accepting who we are. And that puts pressure on the process, it puts pressure on the goal, and we're more likely to fail it. Because no one performs their best under any amount of pressure. Even if it's us putting ourselves under pressure. So there's a couple of landmines already where I think SMART goals may not be the most helpful, and sometimes unconsciously our goals actually become toxic and they hold us back and put pressure on us. If we do anything from fear, we increase that fear. So there's a view of maybe not having goals. What about a state of being, just focusing on that? And there's an element of truth on that if you see someone who's inspires you, then maybe they run a marathon, you think, I'd love to do that. How do they did that? Goals are focusing on doing. How do they do that? Well, it's not really the question to ask. It's easy to work out how to run a marathon. There's plenty of training programs. The question to really ask is, who are they being? Who are they being in order to achieve that? And I think a state of being is so important. And I believe in living more inside out, being aligned to your inspiration, your clarity, your intuition in this moment, and living more from that space. And that's where the magic happens. And I think it's a really powerful place to live from. But I think That alone often results in drifting. And I think it's a balance. Having a goal, a destination, a place you're pointing towards, but holding it lightly. And when it's not a toxic goal, you can hold it more lightly. And being more attuned to your clarity, your inspiration in this moment moves us towards that goal. Or maybe adjust the goal. Having that goal, I think, is really important. But it's holding it lightly, knowing our well-being, our worthiness is not dependent on it. So here's the thing I think I've learnt about goals, or I personally find very useful when it comes to goals, is having that unrealistic goal. It sets a target, sets a heading, but the unrealistic aspect of it allows me to see what it evokes in my being. There's always a goal behind a goal. There's always a goal behind a goal. There's often a psychological goal behind a goal. If you achieve the physical goal, whether it is the promotion, the baby, the relationship, the new business, there's an element of psychological well-being that we're seeking beyond that. We think it's going to give us something beyond the physical. And it's allowing us to tune into that, be aware of that. What's the being that evokes within us if we are to achieve that? How does our nervous system respond? And just relaxing into that, imagining that. Maybe it's a sense of freedom, or a sense of impact in the world, or joy. And it's evoking that sense of being and living from that sense of being now. So I am joy. I am freedom. I am meteoric impact, whatever words come to mind. That it's evoking that state of being now that allows you to create the mindset that creates the inspiration, the clarity, the creativity to take the steps to move you forward towards that goal, to make the choices that move you forward towards that goal. So for me, the goals are really powerful in setting a direction, but also evoking a state of being. Also evoking a state of being today and living more from that space, taking action from that space, making choices from that space. For me, that's what's really powerful about goals. An element is also recognizing how you truly feel today. You may not feel like freedom, joy, impact, all those things that achieving your goal may evoke within you. And it's accepting that. It's really recognizing that. It's in one hand recognizing the state you create from the achieving your goal. The other hand is recognizing how you really feel in this moment. And allowing that. Accepting that. And then that creates a tension between the two. We make choices. I think accepting where we are today allows us to feel into more of a sense of possibility for the future more easily. So goals are not about blindly focusing on the future and denying where you are today. You need to accept where you are today, in one hand, and feel into the state of being behind your goal. And feel into that state of being and imagine what actions and choices you make today from that state of being. But accepting where you are today allows you, to think, to do that more easily, to embrace that sense of possibility more easily. So I think goals are useful, goals are powerful, but it's about holding them lightly. It's holding them lightly. It's knowing that your sense of worthiness, okayness, value, lovability are not dependent on them. It's a place to come from, not a place to get to. A psychological state you think goals are going to give you, it's a place to come from. It's the state to create your success. It's not a state that gets evoked from having got your success. And it's a commitment to yourself in your state of being. Committing to a goal is committing to a state of being. It's committing to a state of being in your heart and how you show up each moment. And it's making a choice. It's making a choice from that space. So I do think goals are very powerful, very useful, but hold them lightly. And know you're okay whatever happens. You're okay whatever happens. At the end of the day, it's about you knowing you're complete in this moment. There's nothing you need to feel content, fulfilled. You are content, fulfilled. You came into the world content and fulfilled. Because when you're a little baby, we don't have to have goals. We do grow and explore and learn to walk and learn to talk innately. But I think often we're bombarded with so many messages as an adult. We're confused from the stories we picked up through our childhood. And sometimes we need a reminder of who we truly are and what we want to create in this world. So that's why goals are powerful and useful, but hold them lightly. It's your little voice within each moment guides you. And maybe you adjust your goals. It's a little voice within each moment that guides you in those moments, in each day, to make the choices you want towards your goal. So it's having the goal, holding it lightly, living more inside out, moment to moment. For me, that creates the progress, creates the clarity, creates the inspiration, and creates a world of possibility. It creates more of a world of possibility. It takes the blinkers off our mind to a world of possibility and creativity. Loving you.